morning? Yes. Okay. Good morning, March 16th. Welcome and good morning to all of you on this overcast, windy morning, which we've had for 3 days. It's kind of bleak. It's hard to walk in that wind. My name is Victoria McDonald. Our minister is the Reverend Kevin Carson. A video will be shown for Time for All Ages. Okay, that's right. Marty usually brings us. Looking at his computer screen. Judy Stanley, our greeter. And coffee hour is thanks to Cindy Logan, who stepped in for me. Okay. We're glad to see all of you after another week of difficulties. My welcome today was found in my pile of Unitarian Universalist writing, written by the ever-famous Anonymous. Give up the longing for some other world, for other choices to make, other songs to sing, other bodies, other places to live. Purge the past, forgive the future. Surrender only to this life, this day, this hour. This is the gift we have been given. These body clothes, this heartbreak, this pulse, this breath, this light, these friends, this hope. Here we remember ourselves. Announcements, we have quite a few. Please silence your phones, and then I hope to remind you to turn them back on, because I forget and I don't get any phone calls. No wonder. Dinners for 8 will begin in April. It's a great chance to get to know one another. Sign-up sheets are on the blue table. Guests are supposed to bring a specific menu item to share with the others, the other 8. The host and hostess will provide a cheery welcome and a warm house. Also, the care team supper will be on Friday, the 28th of March. Soup will be provided by the care team, but please help any way you can. The philosophy group will discuss, my Greek is a little sketchy, Thazimarchus, and the title is Justice is Nothing More Than the Advantage of the Stronger. And on April 17th, Coyote America will be discussed at 7 to 9 p.m. in the church, and I need to order it online. Okay, our community greeting. We have people we haven't seen before. Please get up and greet one another, and when I ring the bell, please sit down. And stop talking. ringing of the peace bowl. Our breath is essential for life. Deep breathing slows our hearts and relieves our anxiety and fears. Breathe deeply in, and with your out-breath, release your fears. Now, please join with me in repeating our covenant found in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another. I find those words very, very important, and when I fall out of step with myself, then I have to go back to those words. Now we're going to light the chalice, and the prelude. I wrote it down. I'm so sorry. It's not the first mistake I've made. words from our website. We gather together on this Sunday as fellow travelers looking for hope, peace, and love. We gather as people from many backgrounds, many faiths, and spiritual paths. But as Reverend Kevin lights the chalice, we gather with the dream of finding hope, peace, and love.
Good morning. Our call to worship this morning is the poem Water by Philip Larkin. If I were called in to construct a religion, I should make use of water. Going to church would entail affording to dry different clothes. My liturgy would employ images of sousing, a furious, devout drench. And I should raise in the east a glass of water where any angled light would congregate endlessly. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 44, We Sing of Golden Mornings.
We sing of golden mornings, we sing of sparkling seas, of prairies, valleys, mountains, and stately forest trees. We sing the flashing sunshine and life-bestowing rain, of birds among the branches and springtime come again. We sing the heart courageous, the youthful eager mind. We sing of hopes undaunted, of friendly ways and kind. We sing the roses waiting beneath the deep piled snows. We sing the earth's great splendor, whose beauty round us glows.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to all our visitors. Let's see, let me find my page here. Yeah, I know. Okay, so instead of reading today, we do have a short animated video about the Salmon of Knowledge as an Irish fairy tale. And then after the video ends, we will sing up. And after the video ends, we will sing up the children. But right now, the Salmon of Knowledge.
I don't have any video.
It's kind of dark.
What?
It's in a link in the tech order service.
Well, that would be the problem. Poof.
That's the leprechauns again.
Long ago,
As we leave this friendly place, the view to every face, may the kindness which we learn light guide us till we return.
Joys and concerns? It's okay. Joys and concerns. Very important for us in this church. Karen Schaefer has a concern. If you are concerned about Medicaid support, look up Reclaim Idaho. Sign your name in support showing Senator Crapo, who is working to hold the 90% federal supplement. Heather Cook. My parents are still struggling to sell their home. Hopefully they will soon. Yeah, housing's kind of difficult. Cindy has a joy. Cindy Logan. My surgery was successful and my left eye is back to 20/20 vision. Very good. Okay, Ron Goen. The outstanding performance of Beethoven's Fidelio, the triumph of goodness and tyranny. And I also went to the opera at the Regal Theater in town. It was Beethoven's, as he mentioned. It's Beethoven's only opera, but the words are always on the bottom of the screen, so you know what they're singing about, although Ron says he understands German and it wasn't the best translation, but next time he'll be there. I was impressed because the opera was specifically about revenge. What the desire for power will lead us to do, and greed. And the four main singers in the opera were Caucasian, and then there were four, I would say, second-tier singers, and they were all Asian, which I've never seen before. So the Metropolitan speaks, not having to use words, but showing by their actions what is important to them. And Joy, my youngest grandson, is engaged. That's also from Ron Goen. Vic Allen, 4 generations of my family gathered at a horse ranch in Coos County, Oregon to celebrate my mom's 92nd birthday. Mom donated a kidney to me in 1979 that lasted me 40 years. She lives on her own, drives, and walks 5 miles every day. She doesn't want Mary's cat either. I think it's a difficult cat. And my last concern is for my neighbor's dog, who is in the backyard, is very old, it's black, skinny as a rail because you can't absorb food, hasn't been brushed in as long as I've known them, has a big sore on her face, and I have enlisted a neighbor to talk man to man to the owner to try. I will take the dog to be put down, and I'm so glad that although I lost my beloved Honey, she died with dignity, and I think that's very important. Death can be a gift. And I think this dog is truly suffering, and I'm hoping this afternoon we can get it to the vet that he will accept. And we light one more candle for the joys and concerns that have not been mentioned, but are held within our human hearts. Peace be with us all.
Our reading this morning is from the book Water from an Ancient Well, Celtic Spirituality for Modern Life by Kenneth McIntosh. The ancient Celts felt a sense of longing, almost of homesickness for the spiritual realm. And they often expressed that yearning in terms of thirst. They regarded wells, lakes, and rivers as thin places, gateways to other realms where they experienced magical healing. These sites were so sacred to the early Celts that they offered sacrifices of jewelry, armor, weaponry, and other precious items to the deities through the springs. These sacrifices were of such value that when the Roman Empire invaded Celtic lands, one of the first actions was to auction off to the highest bidder the local springs with the treasures they contained. When the Celts were introduced to Christianity, they discovered the Bible gave them even more reasons to associate spiritual blessings with flowing waters. In Genesis, Abraham's rejected servant Hagar wanders forlorn in the desert until God provides a spring to save her, and she affirms, "You are the God who sees me." The psalmist describes God's generosity by declaring that God turned rivers into a desert, flowing springs into thirsty ground. In the Gospel of John, when Jesus meets a Samaritan woman by Jacob's well, he asks her to draw water and then promises, "Whoever drinks the water I will give will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life." In the next chapter of the same gospel, Jesus heals a man who is paralyzed at the pool of Bethesda, which is noted for its miraculous powers. And then at the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem, Jesus proclaims, "Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, will have streams of living water flowing within." In Jesus' poetic language, the Holy Spirit is a well springing forth within us, and the Spirit gives us what we each need. Down through the centuries, people have sought the living water Jesus described long ago to the woman at the well. The Christian Celts tended to look at the world from a both-and perspective more than an either-or one. Another word for both-and thinking is non-dualism, and as Franciscan priest and popular author Father Richard Rohr wrote, Jesus was the first non-dual religious teacher in the West. The ancient Gaelic Christ followers were receptive to this grace-filled, holistic mindset. The knots and swirls of their pre-Christian artwork already portrayed this unitive way of thinking. They did not see their pagan ancestors' beliefs as a threat to their newer ones. Instead, one complemented and illuminated the other. They believed God's light shone in all humans, and as a result, they were able to live comfortably side by side with people of varying beliefs. An offering to support the mission of this church will now be given and gratefully received. When I was growing up in North Georgia near Chattanooga, Tennessee, my great uncle owned a tract of land nestled into a cove surrounded by Pigeon Mountain on three sides. It was known as the Pocket Farm because of the near circle that the mountain created around the cove. As I mentioned a few years ago in a sermon about the passenger pigeon, Pigeon Mountain, Georgia, got its name from the enormous migrating flocks containing millions of the birds that once stopped to roost there on their annual journey. My great-uncle purchased the land during the Great Depression, and it was about a half-hour drive from our home. The farm was about 1,000 acres in size, and most of the land was covered in a mixed hardwood forest that extended up the sides of the mountain from the cove to the ridge crest. Only about 30 or 40 acres were open for farming and grazing, and there was an old house and barns dated to sometime before the Civil War. We used to go there about once a month on the weekends and more often during the summer, and though I lived in the country at home, surrounded by the forest and hills below Lookout Mountain, the Pocket for us was like having a private state park to visit. It was filled with an incredible diversity of wildflowers and wildlife, and we would hike on old logging and mining roads that wound through the property up the mountain. There were interesting rocky areas where huge boulders had rolled down from the mountaintop, and there were several cave entrances, including one where you could bend down and hear an intermittent flow of water. In fact, one of the deepest cave systems in North America, known as Ellison's Cave, is located beneath Pigeon Mountain, and it contains several vertical drops that require you to rappel down more than 500 feet each to explore the cave, some through a constant shower of ice-cold water. And if that makes you think about exploring Ellison's Cave, remember that you have to ascend back up each of these deep drops on a wet, muddy rope. This is a place for serious cavers, and unfortunately several people have died there over the years, mostly from hypothermia. There were also several streams that flowed through the farm, and one of these included about a 50-foot waterfall. If you have the All Trails app, you can see pictures of this falls and other areas of the Pocket by looking up the North Pocket Loop Trail. It was truly a child's paradise to explore. And I have no doubts that my time there was formative in my lifelong love of nature and my nature-centered spirituality. It was and still is truly a sacred place for me. In 1976, the state of Georgia forced us to sell the farm when they established the 20,000-acre Crockford Pigeon Mountain Wildlife Management Area. Our farm was the crown jewel of the new state preserve. We were not happy about being forced to sell it, but at least the land has been preserved and new hiking trails have been developed, although the old farmhouse and some outbuildings succumbed to vandalism and have since been removed. It has always felt very strange for me when I visited the Pocket since the wildlife management area was created, driving up the old familiar gravel entrance road only to find a parking area filled with cars from Atlanta and out of state. But one familiar feature dear to my heart has not changed, and that is the reason I'm sharing my story with you this morning. Not far from the parking area, below the hill where the old farmhouse stood, there's a spring that emerges from the hillside out of one of the many cave openings I mentioned. There's a photo of this spring on the cover of your order of service today. It flowed year-round and was the original water source for the farmhouse before being replaced by a hydraulic ram system in the early 20th century. The water in this spring filters down through thousands of feet of limestone within the Ellison Cave system before emerging from the hillside. It was incredibly cold, pure, and delicious, as the resident water strider population indicated. After almost every trip to the Pocket, we would return home with several gallon jugs of what we just called pocket water for drinking. Sometime in the past, someone placed the large sandstone bridge stone across the stream near the entrance to the spring that you can see in the photo. And I have fond memories of kneeling down there to fill up the jugs of water. The pocket spring is very old and has been nourishing humans and animals for a very long time, long before Europeans arrived in North America. An archaeologist who is a friend of my father's found a grinding stone and scores of flint tools and arrowheads near the spring, so there was probably a Native American camp or settlement nearby. It is fun to imagine the different generations of people visiting this spring over the centuries, and my family being part of that story for about 5 decades. I don't know if my path will ever lead me back there someday, but I hope it does. Water is, of course, essential for life, and it is no surprise that a pure source like this is not only a practical resource, but also can evoke a feeling of something sacred to those who develop a relationship with such a source. In many cultures, springs that emerge from caves like this one also have an association with being a gateway to the underworld or another spiritual realm. This adds a dimension of mystery to the sacredness. And like many deep cave systems around the world, if you could follow the pocket spring into the mountainside, you would enter a truly mysterious and dangerous world. It is amazing to explore caves and see the handiwork of water, the erosion of passages, and sometimes spectacular deposits of dissolved minerals, which can create enormous structures if geological time permits. In Ireland, springs are known as wells, and many, along with other bodies of water, have been venerated as sacred sites for thousands of years. They are often associated with deities such as Boan, the goddess of the Boyne, and the goddess Brigid, who was the primary protector of rivers, seas, oceans, and springs. And as you see in many cultures, it was most often the feminine Celtic deities associated with water. Water features were also associated with spirits and other mystical entities, like the famous Lady of the Lake in the Arthurian legend, and supernatural creatures such as the Salmon of Knowledge in Our Time for All Ages. After Christianity arrived, many of these sacred wells then became associated with Catholic saints. In Celtic spirituality, water has always been a symbol of life, rebirth, and renewal, and it serves as a connection to the other world. There are known to be about 3,000 sacred wells in the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland, and there are others scattered throughout the British Isles. Due to the geology of the region, many of the holy wells are springs that bubble up into small pools, but others are more like the pocket spring and flow out of caves. Some are even enclosed by ancient stone structures from Christian and more ancient periods. And a few have even become the site of churches and abbeys, such as the famous Iona Abbey in western Scotland, founded by St. Columba in the year 563, which was built over a subterranean spring. There is still a stone well on the abbey grounds close to the main entrance that would have been a source of water for both drinking and ceremonies, but is no longer functioning. It is believed that this source was important to the Druids and Druidesses prior to the arrival of St. Columba in Scotland. Holy wells are still popular pilgrimage sites, and some are quite famous, such as St. Patrick's Well in Tipperary, where ancient Celts often left offerings to their gods and goddesses and sought healing and wisdom in the waters. Christians have continued to leave small offerings and prayers in the same spirit, and people sometimes come to be baptized in the sacred waters. Prayers offered at the wells are typically an appeal to cure a health issue or resolve some problem that people are facing, and they are mostly an individual folk practice without any particular liturgical form. In many places, rags or other bits of cloth are tied to trees above or around the well, with the idea being that as the rag rots away, so does your illness. Drinking the sacred water is often thought to be healing as well. Since there are many Paleolithic sites associated with the holy wells, some of these wells must have been continuously celebrated as sacred sites for thousands of years across an evolving variety of religious beliefs. I'm fascinated with places like this that seem to possess some kind of inexplicable spiritual appeal that is amplified by their recognition as being sacred and thus imbued with generations of spirituality by the worshipers. Something about these places just seems to resonate with the human psyche. Some might say they possess some kind of spiritual energy, but energy is one of those placeholder words that is overused and too ambiguous for me, especially when it is applied to spirituality. According to legend, St. Patrick, who is believed to have been born in Britain and sent to Ireland as a missionary in the 5th century, drove the snakes out of Ireland and ushered in Christianity. Since there is no evidence that actual snakes have existed in Ireland since at least the last ice age, most people now think of the snakes as a metaphor for the allegedly evil pagan religion of Ireland. But even if you accept the metaphor, St. Patrick was not very successful in rooting out Irish paganism in the end. In fact, the ancient pagan spirituality never really disappeared in Ireland, but was transformed into the unique Celtic Christianity that we see today. Syncretism is the technical word that describes the merging or assimilation of two or more originally discrete religious traditions. And Celtic Christianity is probably the most successful syncretic form of Christianity that has emerged to date. There may be competition for that title among a few new forms emerging in parts of Asia and Africa, but there are such deep influences in Celtic Christianity that I think it is an easy argument to make. One author, Mary DeYoung, who leads spiritual retreats in the Pacific Northwest and in Iona, Scotland, described Celtic spirituality as, quote, inviting us into a feral worship. It is a spirituality that requires us to interact with nature and reflect on our own sacred connection. She writes, to the primal imagination, the experience of numinous presences embedded in these places was personal. There was no dichotomous split between spirit and matter, creator and creature. The natural world buzzed with the divine energy from which it was created. To experience awe and wonder in response to the sunset, the full moon rise, the cry of an eagle or the presence of a stag was evidence of the inherent holy presence within these more than human ones. The fusion of sacred and soil created a felt sense of living in a third place, a thin place where the membrane between this world and the other world, between the material and the spiritual, was very permeable. She goes on to say more about the importance of practicing prayer in the wild, noting that some Celtic saints, such as St. Cuthbert, who was a monk and bishop of Lindisfarne, routinely spent entire nights or mornings praying in the wild. In his case, along the cold, rocky shore near the monastery. And as for sacred waters, here's an account about St. Cuthbert that is typical of the stories that are handed down about the saints, and these often include small miracles. One night, a curious monk watched St. Cuthbert go out into the inky night and secretly followed him to discover what he was doing outside at this time. The devoted observer watched as Cuthbert went down toward the beach below the monastery and out into the sea until he was up to his arms and neck in deep water. Waves splashed all during his vigil throughout the dark hours of the night. At daybreak, Cuthbert came out of the water, knelt down on the sand, and prayed. Suddenly, 2 otters jumped out of the sea, stretched themselves out before him, warmed his feet with their breath and even tried to dry him with their fur. When they had finished, they received his blessing and slipped back to their watery home. Soon he was home and back in choir with the rest of the monks at the proper time. When you have magical otters warming the feet of a Catholic saint, you can see the old pagan spirit is very much a part of Celtic Christianity, no matter how much St. Patrick is celebrated tomorrow. Syncretism is alive and well in Ireland, and it is a fascinating spirituality to explore. We Unitarian Universalists, of course, are very syncretic in our tradition as well, probably even more so than Celtic spirituality, since we are open to exploring any spiritual possibilities. One thing I think we can learn from Celtic spirituality is that embracing a nature-centered spirituality can work very well as an enhancement to any other religious tradition we find appealing. It is not either or. And as we find new ways to integrate nature, we should pay more attention to the practical and spiritual importance of water. Already, we typically celebrate an annual water ceremony or water communion service in almost every one of our congregations. But this is only a start to how we might imagine new possibilities. I really like the idea of looking for more ways of inviting us into a feral worship. Humankind has long recognized our vital relationship with water, even though we've often treated this precious resource as if it was inexhaustible, and even recklessly fouled the very water sources on which our lives depend. Water rituals reconnect us with the sacred, whether it is the Christian sacrament of baptism or the many forms of ritual immersion and bathing in other traditions, such as the mikveh practice in Judaism, the wudu of Islam, and the misogi of Shinto. The clear, cleansing presence of water is seen as transformative and healing, and cleansing the body with water is often a preparatory stage for prayer or before entering a sacred place. Long before we knew anything scientific about life's origins in the ancient primordial seas of earth, we seem to feel a profound, sacred connection between water and human life. It is as if we have always known deep within our souls that water was somehow special. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, and next Saturday is observed by the United Nations as World Water Day. So this is a great time to think about sacred waters that have touched your own life in some way, and just to express gratitude for the life-giving water you consume every day. In metaphor or actual practice, let us drink deeply of the sacred water from ancient wells. I invite you to rise in body or spirit once again and join in singing our closing hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On, in endless song.
My life flows on in endless song, above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn, that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the light it giveth. No storm can shake while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing when tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near? How can I keep from singing to prison cell and dungeon vile? Our thoughts to them are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing?
Our closing words are the poem The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair grows in me and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I'm free.
Please join me in repeating the words for extinguishing the chalice that's found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We'll have the postlude, and then you can turn your phones back on.